The Genesis GV80 is the brand's first SUV, and it's aiming quite high up the luxury ladder. It's looking to take on BMW, Audi, and this, the Mercedes-Benz GLE450. So how does the new kid on the block compare against the established Yardstick? Well, let's go for a drive and try and find out. With the Genesis GV80, you have two engine options. The base engine is a 2.5-liter turbocharged four-cylinder that produces 300 horsepower and 311 pound-feet of torque. The optional engine, which is what I have here, is a 3.5-liter twin-turbocharged V6. This engine produces 375 horsepower and 391 pound-feet of torque and is paired with an 8-speed automatic transmission. Getting off the line in the GV80 is extremely impressive. Considering that this SUV weighs 2.3 tons, it just blasts from a stop to some kilometers an hour. The peak torque figure is reached at below 2,000 RPMs and it's sustained all the way through the mid-range. At higher RPMs, this engine produces loads of power to easily overtake another vehicle. As for the 8-speed automatic, it shifts very quickly in sport mode. In comfort mode, it's a little bit slower, but more importantly, it is very smooth in between the gears. Pretty much imperceivable. The fuel economy figures for this SUV are surprisingly good for something that has a twin-turbocharged V6 engine. But admittedly, it's not as good as the GLE450. The GV80 is rated for 12.9 liters per 100 kilometers in a city and 10.4 liters per 100 kilometers on a highway, while the Mercedes GLE450 is rated for 11.4 and 9.2 liters per 100 kilometers respectively. What's more, I found it easier to get better fuel economy in the Mercedes than in the Genesis. I averaged just 10.1 liters per 100 kilometers in the GLE, while I was struggling to get below 12.5 liters per 100 kilometers in the Genesis. There's a few engine options available with the Mercedes GLE. There is a base 2-liter engine, as well as the big V8 in the AMG model. But what I have here is a 3-liter inline-6 turbocharged engine. It produces 362 horsepower and 369 pound-feet of torque. And despite this GLE450 weighing around just almost 2,300 kilograms or about 5,000 pounds, 0 to 100 kilometers an hour with this engine takes just 5.7 seconds, which is very impressive. However, it's not the only thing that's helping move this much mass. There is also a 48-volt mild hybrid EQ system. There's a starter generator sandwiched in between the engine and the transmission, and that has a few things to do. Obviously, it's a starter, so it turns on the engine, but it can also provide a momentary boost of power, so about 21 horsepower and 184 pound-feet of torque. But that's only when you're putting your foot down on the accelerator pedal. You can't actually drive this SUV just on electricity alone. However, what else it can do is it can actually shut off and start the engine when you're arriving at a stop. It actually shuts off the engine a little bit before you actually come to a complete stop. And if you have it in eco mode, it can actually turn off the engine when you're just coasting. So as soon as you take your foot off the throttle pedal, it can actually shut down the engine if all the parameters are met. Shifting gears is a 9-speed automatic transmission. It's not a dual clutch or anything like that, it's just a regular old-fashioned automatic, which means that the shifts are pretty smooth. It's not the fastest if you decide to use the paddle shifters, even in Sport Plus mode. It'll be a while until it actually reacts to your inputs. However, just leave it in regular drive mode and it reacts perfectly fine to a stab of the throttle. and it knows exactly what gear to choose as well. So leave it in drive, you'll be perfectly happy with it. Taking the Genesis GV80 around a few twists and turns, and you really start to feel the weight of this SUV. The steering is, of course, direct, but it doesn't really give you a whole lot of feedback. And when you put it into sport mode, it just becomes artificially heavier. So still not much feedback through your fingertips. This top-spec Prestige trim comes equipped with an electronic limited slip differential and is only available with all-wheel drive. The 2.5-liter powertrain is available with rear-wheel drive, but only in the United States, not here in the frigid north of Canada. It's pretty much the same story with the Mercedes-Benz GLE450 when it comes to driving around corners. The steering feel is lacking a bit, but then again, it doesn't say AMG on the tailgate. So the light steering is okay for big luxury SUVs like these. However, the Mercedes has an ace up its sleeve. It can be equipped with something called e-active body control. This system scans the road ahead and automatically adjusts the spring rate, damping, and leveling at each wheel. Put the GLE450 in the curved drive mode and this system will lean the body into a corner much like a motorcycle would when cornering. It's an odd and uneasy feeling when a big SUV like this leans into a corner because your brain expects the car's body to lean in the opposite direction. It's also very useful when you're off the beaten path. Coupled with the air suspension, the body can be raised for better ground clearance. But should you get stuck in soft sand or snow, the e-active body control can start to bounce the GLE like a lowrider. This feature is cool to show off to your friends, but its main purpose is to shift sand or snow underneath the tires to help you get out of a sticky off-road situation. Getting into the GLE450 should be straightforward and simple, but the side steps make it a bit more challenging for someone of my height. They sit a bit too low for me to actually use, and they increase the distance between the edge of the seat and the edge of the step, making it feel like as I'm jumping into the seat rather than casually laying in it. If it were up to me, I'd avoid this option. And once you are inside the GLE, well, it doesn't really feel like a GLE. It feels more like a GLS, or the S-Class of SUVs, because it is so comfortable in here. These seats are fantastic. They are, of course, heated, ventilated, and massaging. As well, the center armrest and the armrest on the doors are also heated. Plus, these seats, they can be adjusted to whatever your height is. Actually, you can even enter in your height in the infotainment system and the seat will adjust for you. Pretty cool. In the back, there is plenty of space for someone of my height at 6'4", and it's interesting that I have so much space because the whole SUV is shorter and narrower than the GV80. Behind the rear seats, you will find 630 liters of cargo volume, but if you want more, be prepared to walk around to the side in order to drop down those back seats. The GLE does not have any sort of release mechanism in the trunk, but it can lower the back end if it is equipped with the air suspension. With the seats folded, it has 2,055 liters of cargo volume. This interior is also very quiet. I can barely hear the engine and I can barely hear what's going on outside. There's very little wind noise, very little road noise. In fact, the only thing that's really making a whole lot of noise is, well, me. As for the rest of the cabin, in terms of noise, vibration, and harshness, there really isn't any to mention. Everything feels really solid. Everything feels well put together. There's no squeaks or rattles, even on the roughest roads that I've been driving on. It just feels fantastic in here. It's so quiet and calm. Inside the Genesis GV80, it feels like a proper luxury vehicle. Now, whether it's more luxurious than the Mercedes GLE or not is up for debate. You still get the same materials that you find in the Mercedes, so there's soft leather all across the dashboard and on the door panels, real aluminum trim as well as open pore wood trim, leather on the center console, and of course quilted leather on the seats, and a microfiber headliner. It doesn't have the in-your-face styling that the Mercedes GLE has, but this is a bit more subtle and contemporary, if you will. The steering wheel may not be to everyone's liking because of this gigantic two-spoke design, but it still fits really nicely in the hands. In front of the driver is a full digital display that can actually show the information in 3D. The 3D effect really does work, but unfortunately I cannot show it to you on camera because the camera just can't pick it up. However, my problem with it is that when you do switch it to 3D, it makes the entire screen dimmer, as well as all the numbers and the graphics, they look a bit more pixelated and fuzzy. So I just leave it in regular 2D mode. The infotainment system is displayed on a beautiful 14.5-inch touchscreen. It's very easy to learn and really easy to use. However, the touchscreen itself is a little bit of a stretch for some, so you can use this ring down here on the center console. However, if you've watched any of my previous GV80 or G80 reviews, you know that I hate this ring. It's really cumbersome to use because it's unintuitive. Most other infotainment systems, if they have to be controlled through anything else other than the touchscreen, they either have a touchpad or a rotary knob, not a ring. But thankfully, Genesis did listen, and for the GV70, they reverted back to a rotary knob. If you are interested in that review, you can check it out up here. Overall, you don't need to worry about the interior of the Genesis GV80 feeling cheap because it just doesn't feel that way. It genuinely feels luxurious in here. As for interior space, the GV80 actually has more legroom in the front seats than the GLE, but less headroom. However, I don't have a problem with either. In the back seats, there is a bit less legroom and headroom than in the GLE450. But if there's nobody sitting in the front passenger seat, you can move it forwards and enjoy having a lot more legroom. The back seats of the Genesis can also slide forwards and backwards as well as recline. There are power-operated sunshades and little vanity mirrors on the roof. This Prestige trim also comes equipped with a third row. Sliding the second row is easy thanks to a little button, but the pass-through for the third row is tight. Once you're back there though, you really don't have any space. That third row is strictly for kids, not adults. The Mercedes GLE450 is also available with a third row option, but the demo vehicle that I test drove didn't have it. In the trunk of the Genesis, you will find 328 liters of space with all rows of seats up, 991 liters with the third row folded, and 2,379 liters with the third and second rows folded, all of which can be done with buttons in the trunk area. As for the ride in the GV80, it's not quite as supple and as forgiving, let's say, as the Mercedes GLE. This does not have air suspension, it does not have the e-active body control or anything similar to that. It does have adaptive dampers, which do change firmness depending on the drive mode. However, the overall ride when you go over bumps and uneven road surfaces just isn't quite as smooth as it is in the Mercedes GLE. That being said, compared to other luxury SUVs of this size, it's actually pretty good. As for the noise inside the cabin, it's pretty quiet on city streets. You do hear the engine a little bit once you accelerate from a stop. However, on highways, it's more road noise that you hear from the tires. However, it's not overly intrusive. But the Mercedes GLE still has just a slight edge over the Genesis GV80 when it comes to ride comfort and interior cabin noises. What about pricing then? Would you believe me if I said that the Genesis GV80 has a more expensive starting price than the Mercedes-Benz GLE450? Well, it does, because the 2022 GV80 starts at $85,500 Canadian, while the Mercedes GLE450 starts at $80,600 Canadian. Granted, at this price, the GV80 is fully loaded with all the bells and whistles, like soft closed doors, head-up display, wireless phone charging, surround view cameras, panoramic sunroof, heated and ventilated front seats, and so on. The Mercedes, on the other hand, can still be equipped with a lot of packages and standalone options. For example, the e-Active body control system is an 8,900 Canadian dollar option. When it's all said and done, a fully loaded GLE450 can end up costing closer to $110,000 Canadian. So is the Genesis GV80 on par with the Mercedes-Benz GLE450? The short answer is no. The GV80 is a good luxury SUV, but the Mercedes is a great luxury SUV. It provides a little bit more space. It's a little bit quieter. It's a bit smoother. It's a bit better to drive. All of those little bits add up to the Mercedes being an overall better vehicle. Of course, it is significantly more expensive than the Genesis, and you're not getting the same value for your money. Which is why the Genesis GV80 is so appealing to the money-conscious buyer. Eventually, one day, Genesis will reach the same status and level of luxury as Mercedes. But for now, the GLE is still the yardstick to be measured against. If you want to know more about either of these luxury SUVs, I wrote more detailed reviews of them over on my website. You can find the links in the video description. And as always, I will see you in the next car or truck or most likely another SUV. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and see you in the next video.